Here's an actual tablet that's stored in the British Museum. It's labeled the Flood Tablet. Just like the Noah's Ark tale is a paper version of a story, this is the Sumerian original version of how a Sumerian is chosen by a Sumerian god to build a craft, to take the animals and plants, because there's going to be a great flood. Why was there a great flood? Because this planet, another planet within our solar system, was going to come by and cause gravitational effects, and it basically would crack off a large part of our ice sheet, like an ice cube going into a glass of water. The waters would instantly raise. So they have a much more detailed explanation of the Noah's Ark tale and explaining why there was a great flood. And this is part of a much larger scope of a story and information. One of the tales, again, giants upon the earth, a Sumerian artifact showing them seated before a god. And again, it's very interesting how they depict these beings as much larger than the Sumerians. So this information about a Sumerian planet X, some of you might be familiar with this term, planet X, is a modern term where science beyond Pluto is looking for another planet. Pluto being the 9th planet, if they don't demote it. Planet X would symbolically mean 10, but also unknown. And interestingly enough, these Sumerians gave us unbelievable accurate astronomical information to the degree that here we see a tablet that shows our complete solar system in the backdrop with the sun in the center. Now, through the times of Copernicus and Galileo, do I have this slide? I don't. Okay, I'll just talk you through this. Through the times of Copernicus and Galileo, we thought we were the center of the universe. And it turns out the Sumerians were depicting this accurately without the use of math or telescopes as saying that, actually, no, we orbit the sun. So this is very interesting to have a tablet that's this old and depicting this information. And actually that date, forgive me, is wrong. It should be 2500 BC. It's 4,000 years old, so excuse me there. So another interesting piece of the information from the Sumerians is they had all of the planets with Sumerian names and called, for instance, Mosh Sea, bluish green, describing our outer planets, as you can see here. They called us He. They said that we were on the 7th planet. Everyone hears that third rock from the sun term, like it's a cool TV show, but we're actually on the 7th planet. And if you count in from Pluto and go all the way in, you'll notice that we are actually on the 7th planet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Earth is the 7th planet. So if you're coming from the solar system outside in, they were accurate in telling us that we're the 7th planet, 7 days in a week, the sacred number 7. So here's just an artist's depiction of showing there are all these planets that we know of and an additional one beyond Pluto. Zechariah Sitchin and the Sumerians called it the 12th planet. We call it the 10th planet, meaning the planet beyond Pluto. They encapsulated a solar system model that was all of the 9 planets that we know of, plus our sun, our moon, and then a Nibiru, making 12 planets. And then we have a very interesting record that comes out of the Sumerian text and explaining how Planet X initially helped form Earth. We're talking 4.5, 4.7 billion years ago. The planets aren't fully hard yet. This intruder planet comes in, Planet X, Nibiru, passes by these planets, gets attracted into the gravitational pull, whacks our primitive Earth. Didn't actually hit us, but the moon of Planet X, labeled here North Wind, whacks our Earth, puts it in a new orbit, and that's what created our asteroid belt. Put Earth into a new orbit, and in doing so, left us as half a planet. But we all know today, through the idea of Pangea, Earth was at one point just one chunk of land. But the skin of an apple has peeled it off the continents on the surface to where they are now. Originally, it was just one landmass. Siphon off all the water, half a planet. Very interesting correlation to what the Sumerians told us 6,000 years ago in saying that, this initial collision that took place billions of years ago in describing the formation cosmology of our solar system. Planet X's moon hits Earth. It creates the asteroid belt. Earth is moved over right next to the asteroid belt in Mars in its new orbit. Just very interesting that the Sumerians, this ancient culture, right on the money with giving a very logical explanation for our cosmology. And you can see again all the pieces fit as they teach in school. And there's our half planet Earth. So the orbit of Planet X goes around our sun once every 3,600 years. We have a solar year of 365 days. One orbit around the sun is a year. For them, one orbit around the sun is 3,600 of our years. So just an interesting thing to think about, that if you're living on another planet and it goes around the sun 3,600 years of our years, it's still just 1 year for them. So I always like to hypothetically say, if you were an Anunnaki and you're living on Planet X, let's say Jesus was an Anunnaki, And Jesus comes here at 21 and says, my people, live well and care for each other. Leaves for 3,600 years go by on Earth. He just goes back on Nibiru, one orbit around the sun for him. He comes back. It's been a year for him. He's aged a year. It's been 3,600 years on Earth, and he still looks like Jesus. So very interesting correlation of saying when you die, you go to heaven, and this whole thing with Christian philosophy of saying you're rewarded in heaven with a longer life. This is some of the correlations that come out of Sumerian tales, where Noah is talked about having a lifespan of 900 years. These tales going further back, the Sumerians describe this information of how when you go to Nibiru, being on a longer orbit, these lifespans were achieved. So very interesting correlation of the Sumerians talking about another planet, beings coming from that planet visiting us, and our modern science today looking for a planet within the same correlations and confines of what the Sumerians are describing. The modern terminology today is giving you all types of labels for the chunks of ice they found beyond Pluto and called it Planet X, but it's not. These are small, 800 miles, 1,400 miles. The Planet X we're talking about, if you hear this term again in the news, folks, Planet X, it needs to be a planet 4 to 8 times the size of Earth. Then there's something to be interested in. Some astronomer in Japan that says, oh, we have a new Planet X and it's a little tiny planetoid. No. The research going back from Zachariah Sitchin and Dr. Harrington here at NASA, they compared their orbital models. The NASA model of a highly elliptical orbit, Nibiru with a highly elliptical orbit, match and correlate. So in modern science, we see this being discussed. Planet X, a mystery around the sun. Something is out there beyond Pluto. We don't know what it is. A 10th planet. So our technology today is allowing us to pierce the veil of space with using infrared. And there was basically fine layers of dust out in space where they tried to use the Hubble and various other telescopes, and they would just get blurry images. With these new telescopes, they're kept super cooled in space, and they can adjust the temperature of the telescope to basically peer through using infrared, peer through the dust, and get crystal clear images. All these bright objects that you see there are other suns with worlds around them, other little solar systems in just that one galaxy. And you can see the amount of detail that we're now able to get when we normally had just visible light under these new telescopes using infrared. Look at the detail that comes out. So we're really making a lot of advances in science, and even some of the theories that are coming out in modern science. This one was on the Discovery Channel about a year ago. Couldn't help it but hit DVR record, because this is, they're calling the Orpheus theory. And they said that an intruder planet from outer space, way out in the depths, whacks our Earth, and that debris coalesces into our moon. Very similar to the Sumerian model of an intruder planet comes in and whacks Earth and raises the asteroid belt. Very similar to some of the mainstream science saying now, yes, when we incorporate another body into our solar system model, it explains why Uranus is tilted on its side, why Pluto and Neptune possibly were first moons of Saturn have been dislodged. So a very interesting piece of information. Another thing I like to point out here too is two things. One, people have heard of this term MJ12. Anyone deeply rooted in ufology has heard MJ12, the secret organization. I always like to correlate the fact that Planet X, we're talking about the 12th planet, and interestingly enough, passes between Mars and Jupiter. So that's MJ12, Mars, Jupiter, 12th planet. But that's just another little, doesn't really mean anything. But if you look here on the map, you can see between Mars and Jupiter where the asteroid belt is, there's clearly enough room for another large planet to pass freely through there. So one of the things about Planet X is in the past, 2003, in 2012, even people have been saying, Planet X is going to be what's coming to kill us. Just a simple mathematical equation here shows that 4.7 billion years ago is initially, when I showed that diagram, it came in and whacked us. Then it goes on to have a 3,600-year orbit. So from that initial collision, 4.7 billion years ago, divided by 3,600 years, how many times it goes around the sun? It goes around the sun once every 3,600 years. That equation shows that it's already made its orbit over 1 million times that it's come around the inner part of our solar system. So it's very possible that not every time Nibiru orbits around the inner part of our sun that it's causing gravitational effects on our planet. It might be on one side of the sun and we're way over here. I have no idea, but a lot of people really try and speculate that the next global catastrophe is going to be because Planet X is being spotted and it's there. I assure you folks, we have such a multitude of amateur astronomers that if anything 4 to 8 times the size of Earth is anywhere near us, we're going to see it. Okay, so I'll kind of start to wrap it up here. Ancient gray aliens, very interesting correlation of what we find coming out of the Sumerian culture, are beings that assisted the Anunnaki. And they called them, there were certain instructions that you would go question-wise that you could ask these beings to find out whether it was alive or not. They basically acted as though they were alive but were not. It sounds like a robot or an android. And these very interesting, beings or helpers of the Anunnaki look like today's modern-day gray aliens. So maybe if the Anunnaki could have genetically taken the hominoid that was here and put their genes in their image and after their likeness, just like the Bible, and created us, why couldn't they have taken another genetic race? Maybe all these beings look the same for a reason, and they're the watchers, kind of watching over the grand experiment here on Earth of the human genetics. I'm completely speculating there, but it is an interesting correlation when we see these depictions of these helpers of the Anunnaki and their close proximity of what we call today the Greys. So one last area I'll show is that there's some very interesting things about Mars and Earth, and we've been sending a plethora of probes, and our data has been increasing more and more to the degree that you can see today now that we get terabytes of data, coming from our satellites. So we're learning more and more, and as we can zoom in, we can see actual changes in real time taking place. You can see the dates change and how over time there's some water that started to drift down on the side there. So you can see the pixels in ratio. Our quality is getting so much better, and we're going to be doing a lot more activities on Mars. So it's very interesting to look at some of the things that we've been finding out about Mars, because NASA's not the only one there now. Japan is there, the ESA, the European Space Agency, is there, and when we look at some of the record of NASA, these are images that I found doing some research into NASA of my own that are from 1979 on the surface of Mars, and they show snow on the surface, water basically, right on the surface of Mars. Another thing is that if you color correct it, meaning the camera lens on the orbiters are not human eyes. They're taking in a much larger spectrum of light. When you do just a simple algorithm of RGB, what the human eye processes, like if we were standing there, it looks like that on Mars, blue skies. But for some reason they have this tendency to want to keep it looking red, and we all, oh, the red Mars, and they just thought it was a cool thing and they just went with it. That's not the surface of Mars. And so some of the details that we have here, NASA, for instance, shows this in black and white, and doesn't really give us any detail about what that is on the surface of Mars.
Grass.
Well, interestingly enough, another agency, ESA, was nice enough to shoot the Gusev crater, same coordinates, in color. That looks like vegetation to me. So a lot of these things that are coming out about Mars and its past and its watery life past, there's also a lot of artifacts and things that we've been familiar with, the face and pyramids and some of the things that we're imaging now. The face, obviously this was imaged in 1976 and quickly dismissed as a trick of light and shadow. Nothing to see here, there's no face. But under a different satellite pass where the orbit is in a different angle and the sun's in a different angle, the face is still there. Not only that, but as we can see here, I've labeled land and water. You can see a terrain change from where it's brighter, knobbier terrain, and it goes into darker, more mellow terrain. And so I make the comparison that if we look at these separations of the land and the water, it looks like all the structures are on the landmass, pyramids, things here in the corner. And the face is out as if it was in some water, just like we would have today, where there's monuments. Everyone loves to live on waterfront property. Why not on Mars? So these objects are all built in a way where they're right on the shoreline, situated so they can look at the face as a monument. Now this face on Mars has gotten all kinds of scrutiny. In 1998, it just got so bad that that was the face on Mars. It's like the resolution got worse. 1976, 2002. What's going on here? What's up with the resolution? That's okay, NASA. NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, could also be never a straight answer. They've done a lot of tampering with the data. I'm going to kind of go through a couple of these slides because I want you to look at something else here. When we take even this poor image and rotate it so it's looking at you head on, split it down the middle, we're all asymmetrical, meaning if I stand and look in a mirror with only half my face, it should still look like me in the mirror because my face is asymmetrical. Taking this photo and doing that same line of thinking, when I split these two in half, the side that's not so well eroded. We can see this on the left, and we'll get to that. But even the right side, it still has facial characteristics. The left side, less eroded, mirrored, those are facial characteristics. We have some type of a headdress, eyes, nose, mouth, symmetry of a face. There's just too much of a coincidence here for this to not be something that merits further attention. And again, we can see here under higher resolution, there's now other objects. This is something that's being looked at now by people. Very fortunate to have given the last lecture with a gentleman named Dr. Tom Van Flandern, who passed away this year. In his last lecture, he was showing evidence of this enlarged area I have here where there's tubes on Mars. And you can just look at that on your own on YouTube, just type in tubes on Mars, and there's an amazing array of all this high resolution data showing these structures, what look to be like tunnels on Mars, connecting a lot of these structures. And again, you can just see verses 76 to 1998, looking at the pyramids that I point out, 1 and 2, they're actually under higher resolution, which is the gray strip. It's still a pyramid. There we go again, just showing the correlation. 1998, and zooming in, they still look like pyramidal structures. The one in the city here in 1976, we weren't sure, but under higher resolution, it's still a pyramid. It looks like a pyramid. We don't know what these could be. I think the only answer for us to find out what's on Mars, and maybe we'll discover we have a much richer history, is we actually need to send people to Mars, not these robots. What happens now is we send a probe to Mars. Some gentleman at NASA has been working 10 years on a little device that's going to stick it into the dirt and see if there's a certain type of chemical. It's not sticking it into the dirt and saying, I'm looking for life or signs of life. It's looking for something other than just that. So what the problem is that we have a bottleneck in science right now where there's probably life on Mars, but they don't have anything to stick into the dirt on their probes that's going to say, yes, it's life. They're looking for things leading up to life. So unfortunately, we have to kind of go with the technology because, I think one of the other countries like Japan or ESA, they'll have something ready to deploy and we'll be like, bing, we found life. But unfortunately, that's kind of a bottleneck we have at NASA is a lot of the things that we're deploying. It's not a meter attached to the probe ready to say, I'm looking for life. It's looking for chemicals that are going to be leading up to signs of life. One more. Yes, ma'am.
So we probably invaded Iraq for this kind of information, and what are they doing with the stuff that's there now to keep it from us?
Good question.
Hiding it?
Yes, ma'am. Well, originally when the whole thing took place in Iraq where there was the looting, behind the scenes information came out from the ufology channels that two things happened. One, whether or not any of this is confirmed or not, I don't know, that basically Saddam Hussein got himself some nice alien technology and started reverse engineering it. We didn't like that. Thought, oh my gosh, this could be bad. We gave up some excuse to go in and invade him. And when we did it the first time, he was hanging out in these ziggurat pyramids that are of such, wealth of history, we couldn't bomb them, so we couldn't get them. And then the second time around, it's the same idea, is that he had access to technology, and he was even going to the degree he wanted to set up an Anunnaki theme park and was requesting the British Museum send him all the original replica seals and such. Replicas that he had, he wanted the originals, and they were going to make this big museum. So when this looting took place, there was a coordinated effort, from what I was told, people with little earpieces and devices where they were able to get into locked areas. And they didn't, like that someone broke a window and grabbed an artifact and ran. There was a coordinated effort that took place. So I don't know what to tell you other than, yes, those artifacts have a very important historical value. I can see why they would have been looted, but there was a lot of ufological information coming out around Saddam Hussein as a possible reason for why we chose to snuff him out when we did. Yes, Jordan?
Jason, the 7 equal circles, we were commenting on that briefly.
Yes.
What did those represent again?
To be honest with you, I'm guessing on that because I went through the British archive and I've been looking at Sumerian artifacts for so long. I found what looked to me to be the symbol of Nibiru with its moon, and then the 7 dots of Earth depicted with its moon as well. Last question.
Question from the website. From the web viewers. Somebody says, Robert Dean says Planet X can be seen by the Naval Observatory. Have you heard that?
No, I would answer that in saying Dr. Harrington, who we showed in the lecture, did collaboration with Zachariah Sitchin in the late 80s from the Naval Observatory in collaboration about the Planet X. There has been rumors of a telescope in in the Antarctic, if you will, that's now filming Planet X. I can't confirm that. I've not seen anything on that note. And again, what I would say is that anyone out there saying that they're taking pictures of Planet X with a webcam or something near the sun and they're showing a bright object, my personal opinion, that's fine. I'm just saying that my personal opinion is that anything 4 to 8 times the size of Earth is not something we're going to be able to hide. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there, folks. Thank you so
Jason, can I
much.
ask one quick
Sure,
thing
go
on
ahead,
your
Doug.
website?
Okay.
On your website, there is a really neat video of life on Mars, and it was the Naval Observatory astronomer. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. It goes 13 minutes, and then
Yeah.
it cuts off. Where's the rest of it? It's
Yeah, that's
so
a
good.
video. Great question. That's a video you can buy from Amazon.com. It's called "Are We Alone?" and it's by Zachariah Sitchin. Yes, that was just a small excerpt of it. It's a good video.
From the astronomer, the one.
He was just part of the video being interviewed. That's the one I'm thinking you're thinking about. So it's called "Are We Alone?"
You know, it's called Life on Mars.
Then yeah, I'm not. I couldn't tell you. I'm not
It's
sure.
13 minutes of something.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Really
I
good stuff.
couldn't tell you. All right, folks. Thank you very much